Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're super excited this morning. We've got a great topic and a great group of folks to talk about some things. Let's just do a little bit of housekeeping to help you understand how to communicate with us. We have a lot of things to talk about, and we want to make sure that you guys are involved and that you interact and you ask questions so we can help get some information and make this a great session for all of us. So first things first, we're going to talk about how do we create successful teams? How do we put together the teams that are right for the organizations and the customer need? And so one of the things we want to start with is just kind of reiterating that customer success is not one size fit all. It's very much based on the need and the size of the organization and really who you want to be to the customer and what you're trying to do for the customer. So I think with that, let me introduce our amazing folks joining us today. Let's start off with Anne. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Bibb. I'm the founder and CEO of Remote Evolution and CX Evolution. And I have been in the CS industry for going on 25 years now and have helped multiple organizations with their customer success teams. And that can be coming in from a consulting side or from internally. So happy to be here today.
Awesome. How about you, Kylie?
Hey there, good morning. I'm Kylie Crisp. I'm the Director of Client Success for Venue Ops at Ungerboeck, and we're an organization that serves venues worldwide through our software. And I've been in the industry for a little over 10 years, so I just love serving customers and have wandered from a client services role at a healthcare finance company for about 5 years, and then I've been in my previous role for almost 6 years. So I just love talking about helping make customers successful and pouring into the people who work alongside us.
That's fantastic. All right, Mo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Mo. I've also been in the industry for about 10 years. I've been on many different sides of the go-to-market equation. So I've been in support, I've been in customer success, I've actually been in product marketing, and also sales. So I have a little bit more like of a holistic vision of the customer journey as a result of that. So sometimes I fuse a lot of different roles together, which you'll probably understand when I start describing some of my team structure things. But yeah, I've worked for a variety of different startups. Most people probably know me from Help Scout. That's where I was the longest and helped build some of their initial stages around customer success, which at the time we were calling support-driven growth. And then I've carried that methodology to a couple of other startups that have come since. Brightback, which was recently acquired by Chargebee, Moxion, which was recently acquired by Autodesk. And now I'm actually building out the customer success functionality in the support-driven growth methodology style at a company called LaunchNotes, which is a product success platform. And it's all about aligning customer feedback closer to the development and product lifecycle. So it's super aligned with my ethos as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Also, I love what you're doing right now. That's super exciting. A little bit about myself. I guess I should introduce myself. Jen Jackson. Been in the customer arena, since 1912. I mean, back in Sicily where it all started. We all know that's totally fine. And I'm super passionate about the customer. I've been in, most post-sales always. Throughout my career. And what's more important to me, I think, when I think about doing stuff for the customers is the outcomes and really making sure that we're checking the boxes. My eye twitches a little bit when I hear delight because I really want to make sure that we solve the problem that's right in front of us and long-term. So I'm a little bit of an odd duck, but that's who I am. So awesome. Let us take a moment and thank Stonely for bringing us all together here. Stonely is an amazing software that really kind of brings together the human touch and onboarding and the different learning styles, bringing that together, really helping you adapt to your audiences and making sure that that enablement in the beginning goes really smoothly, because we all know in that first 90 days, you make or break a relationship sometimes. So it's super important to make sure you get that right. So some instructions. Over to the right of your window, you should see chat. We're already speaking. We've got lots of people. I am so happy that you West Coasters are up with us, and thank you for the East Coasters for giving us the mid-morning attention. Us in Central, we're just having our coffee. I see Ann and I both have our coffee in front of us, so good stuff right there. Couple things. We're going to be interacting in the chat with you, so you'll see us pop in and out while we're speaking. Also, we are recording this, and afterwards you'll get an email that says, hey, if you'd like to see this, there's here. And a couple of us usually share it on LinkedIn after, so there's a couple different ways that you can get it. Let me see. I think that is all the housekeeping, and we can jump right into it, which is super exciting. So first, I think we should talk about kind of the climate. It's changed in the past couple of years. We've just got so much going on in the world with our organizations, and a lot of the way that we've looked at our teams and the way we've had to kind of fiscally plan has changed a bit. You know, some of us are having to make decisions on how do we scale, how do we get ready for especially the recession coming and what's next. And so I guess probably where we should start is investment in customer success, because we can't really start building our teams until we have the investment of the organization and really the buy-in. So let's start there. Like, why do you think it's important right now, I would say more than ever, to make sure you have a solid investment in customer success? And I'm gonna mix it up every time. We'll just spin the wheel and see where we land. So Kylie, let's start with you. What do you think? Oh, I think we're muted, or I lost my hearing. Either
Got
way.
it. Investing in customer success is huge. When a customer comes on board with your company, you're with them for the long haul. And so customer success is there to partner with them to be successful for as long as they choose to do business with you. So to leave customer success out of the equation, I think, is very short-sighted, and we're here to show that we care and to help them be successful.
That's a good thought. Mo, what do you think?
Yeah, so I want to start out with how I think of customer success, because it is something that I feel like a lot of people have different definitions around, and sometimes different structures in terms of their team. So when I think of what is customer success, all I think about is what are the customer's goals and desired outcomes with the product or service that you're delivering, and then what is the fastest, easiest, and most frictionless path to get them to those outcomes. So, and then what customer success is it's not necessarily like a replacement for account management, although it looks like that in some cases. It's not necessarily like a souped up support, although it looks like that in some cases. But all it is the process and operations and the teams, the customer facing teams that it helps to take customers to get there. So if you think of it from that perspective, customers only buy software to achieve goals and outcomes. So if you don't have some team and process looking over making sure that the customers get there, you don't have any sort of insurance that the customers are actually going to achieve what they wanted to do with your software. And that is exactly what drives things like retention revenue. That's what prevents churn. That is what increases lifetime value. So you need that team, whatever that team looks like, to kind of own the processes and operations on whether or not the customer is achieving those desired outcomes. So from my perspective, customer success is business table stakes. Like, you are not going to retain customers if they're not achieving goals and outcomes with your product. Now, whether that looks like high touch handholding, or whether that looks like velocity enablement and automated processes and like one-to-many things like webinars and documentation and things like that, I have a little bit more of a fuzzy perspective on what customer success is in that regards. But like, in terms of making sure customers achieve desired outcomes with your product or service and getting them there as fastly and as quickly as possible, I mean, your business is literally not going to survive without people looking after that.
I love that you did that, Mo, because that really foundationally is what customer success is, right? It is helping customers reach their desired outcomes, not your own, but using your product or service.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the definition of customer success.
Yep.
So, and if an organization can look at it like that, there really isn't one size fits all customer success team. Like, you can set it up multiple different ways depending on the size of your organization and where you are, whether you're startup, mid-market, transitioning, enterprise. You can combine it with your account management team. You can separate it. You can combine it with your operations. You can have a farmer within it. You can have your implementations team. There's a lot of ways that you can do your customer success. And it's really important to recognize that as you scale, it's important to revisit where you are and set it up what's right for you, but more importantly, your customers. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Making sure you're helping your customers reach their desired outcome. That's customer success. So I love that that was the first thing you said. And if you as a business are keeping your eye on that definition, customer success is helping customers reach their desired outcomes through utilizing your product or service, then you're going to keep winning.
I love the way that we're thinking about this, though, because if you think about this, all of us as leaders, we have to be operationally minded. So we have to understand who we want to be to our customers, how value is recognized in our product, what that means internally. And so while we're thinking about those things, we're looking at our tech stack, we're looking at how we engage, we're looking at the personas we're needing, we're looking at the needs of the customer and trying to really put that together. So it's not just a simple, like, let me hire some folks and put them in place. There's a process that goes into it. And a lot of us know that we're moving fast. So we're not going to get to waterfall our plan and just sit for 6 months and plan it out. We are hiring people, we're moving, we're pivoting, we're very agile and moving through the process. And I think that's very important to think about because you're never done, right? You can get to certain phases, you can establish certain parts of it, but you're always growing. You're always looking for things like that. I think when I'm looking at some of the organizations that I've gone in to build from scratch, we've, reorganized and scaled. We've, efficiency kind of looked at how we were doing things. And I think that the different phases of building the teams are super important. Once you identify kind of your operational kind of foundation and where you are and what you need, and you're looking to build the teams, where do you start? And I think, let me say this, that we are always having to start somewhere, and then it's where do you start? And I think, some of the questions I get the most is like, I don't know. There's so much content and there's so much advice and I don't know what to do. And so, Anne, why don't you get us started and tell us, like, where would you tell folks to start when they're at that phase? I think we've got a couple people in here who are just gone through building, coming in to join. So I think it'd be great if we could give them some starting points or some nuggets of our wisdom. Oh, Anne, we're muted. What's the most famous phrase of 2022? Oh, you're muted.
You know what? I've worked with a lot of people, and they always laugh because I'm always the one that's double muted. I'm known for it. It's something that it's a big joke with everybody that I've ever worked with. So I go back to the definition of customer success. Even whenever you're starting, right? It is the foundation, helping customers reach their desired outcome through the utilization of your product or service. So looking at your business, how are you going to do that? Are you going to segment your customers? How are you going to set it up? And are you going to start looking at how do you want to set that customer success team up? If you're a startup, look at what phase your business is in. If this is your first customer success team, it is really not uncommon to have your CES team handle the full end-to-end of the customer lifecycle management. They essentially handle the onboarding of new customers. They provide support throughout the entire customer lifecycle. They train and educate your customers through everything. They handle renewals and updates. They upsell, cross-sell, really ensure that metrics are being met. They really handle the end-to-end. However, as you scale, it's important to revisit that regularly because that's a lot. And you're seeing a lot of CSMs get burnout because it's not revisited as businesses scale. And if that is what's happening, then you really need to revisit how, is it time to pull implementations out and have an implementation team? And then have your CSMs really just handle it from that point on and continue to handle upsells and renewals. So it's the very first thing that you should do whenever you are thinking about implementing a CSM team is decide how are you going to segment your customers? And secondly, what do you want your CSM team to do, right? Because first off, if you want your CSM to handle 70 clients, it's fine. That's absolutely doable. But what do you want them doing for 70 clients? If you want them doing that end-to-end life cycle, that's a lot for 70 clients. If you want them handling 15 clients, that's totally different. End-to-end for 15 clients is much more manageable. So it's very important to understand what you want that CSM to do before you move forward. So that would be the first thing that I would say. Sit down, look at it logically from that strategic standpoint, and decide what to do before moving into creating.
And what you're speaking of sounds just like the world I've come from. Hey, we're going to do all the things. We're huddling around the customer. We're doing onboarding, consulting, support, client success, sending, doing upsells, a little bit of everything. And for those of you who are in that camp, I'm here to tell you that's okay. And it's okay. You're growing, and you may move into more of a specialized path. But if you're doing all the things right now, it's okay. You do what you have to do. And then over time, we got to a point where we said, you know what, the best customer experience is going to happen if we have a dedicated consulting and onboarding team, a dedicated account management team. You know what, the skill sets that are required to be an effective customer success manager, they do look a little bit different than those that our consultants have. And so over time, we've moved into that path, and it's worked super well. But it is fun to come from, if you are in that mindset where you're doing all the things, I think it does give you a greater appreciation for everything that is involved in making your customer successful.
Yeah, Kylie, I'll be happy to piggyback on some of this too, because I also come from the startup and starting from scratch world. And I do think it's funny in the beginning stages. Now I do have a formula I'm happy to share in terms of starting from scratch that seems to work pretty well, but I also will agree that sometimes you have to just throw a ton of spaghetti at the wall with customers. And as long as you're measuring things to see what is actually effective and also then has a compelling ROI, because obviously, I mean, it makes no sense to handhold like free customers. Like nobody wants to do that, or like basic plan customers. But it is something where you kind of have to build the experience with the customer together in those early stages to see like what is resonating with them. I actually, so at HelpScout, I was very much in the one-to-many customer success world. At Moxion, our customers were the largest companies in the world. So they're because it was a film and television production software. So we were working with Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Disney, essentially huge customers. And we had discovered there's actually two different types of customers within that, which was productions, which is a little bit more like a high velocity, because productions get up and running really fast, and they have to move at a very, very fast pace, and they're always turning over. The joke was that there's 100% churn rate. And then there's the studio side, which actually is the productions are under the studio. So it ended up being this very strange franchise relationship. And we actually ended up structuring our team to production success and studio success, because the studios needed a really high touch customer success, not babysitting is a bad way to say it, but just a really dedicated person to kind of be their person, and productions just needed to talk to anyone at any given time, and they needed everyone to be up to speed on whatever they were doing, and it needed to go very fast, because if you don't solve a production problem in like a minute that they write in, it's like costs $100,000 billion a minute. So the like this, and this speaks to your like one size fits all, this one size fits all thing, that like it isn't one size fits all. You have to build it with the customers. That said, in terms of getting started, I will say, and especially since this is Stoneleigh, I would always recommend getting started. If you're in the very, very early stages of a startup, just start with talking to as many customers as you can and using that as a foundation to build your documentation and enablement, and have that be the foundation of customer success, because not only is that your for customers and helps them, but it also helps train any future success support and so on. So when I structure my success teams from scratch, and I hybridize support and success, and I'll get more into that later, but I always start first phase when I'm the first or second person in there, I just document everything. Then the second phase is all about hiring for coverage. So I'll hire someone on the West Coast, East Coast, EMEA, and APAC, and I will hire all generalists that are a little bit customer successy and a little like full stack CSMs, I think it's like the hip term people are using. I'll hire people who are a little bit successy, but also can absolutely troubleshoot a bug. Then the third phase is like we were talking about with studio success versus production success. That's when I'll hire for operational segments. So if you need a high touch segment, that's when it'll become very clear that customers need that. Or if there's a high velocity segment, that's when I'll start building out that team. Then each of those then scale into specialties. So Anne, as you were saying, high touch might have solutions consulting. It might have implementation. It might have onboarding. It depends on kind of what that needs of the high touch is. And then velocity success also has specialties. We break them into product specialty, growth specialty, operations specialty, and engineering specialty. And so each of those specialties then serves as a feedback loop to different arms of the business. And that's a little bit what I was talking about in terms of customer success is really just an operational process to make sure customers are achieving their desired outcomes. And by breaking production success or velocity success, kind of a support and success hybrid, into these specialties, we're circulating the voice of customer into every single department of the business, which then makes it facilitates a constant dialogue with the customer to make sure that their desired outcomes are being met.
And going off of that, and somebody mentioned in the chat earlier, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, about making sure the roles and responsibilities are clearly defined, right? Making sure who knows what, because when you're cross-pollinating the role like that, then relationships can get kind of touchy. People can get kind of like, don't touch my cheese. So it's, I don't know if anybody's read that book, but if you haven't, don't eat my cheese. Like I absolutely recommend it, because this is this kind of area. It's really important that your CSM knows everything about the business and what every department does. And one of the things that I really love to do is to make sure that a CSM has that onboarding experience of sitting in each department for a while and making sure that they know what everybody does. But one of the things you said, Mo, that I really liked was the different kinds of CSMs. We've mentioned multiple times, it's not one size fits all. And I think about how many times have I bought a shirt that says one size fits all? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even get it over my left arm, or it drowns me. It's like a tent. CS is the same way. It very much depends on the type of business you have, the type of organization you have. A SaaS CSM is not going to be the same kind of CSM as a services CSM, or a CSM that it's just every organization has a different need. And I go back to understanding what you need your CSMs to do, because then you're going to go back and you're going to hire the right person. If you hire the right person, to service your needs as an organization and to help your customers reach their desired outcome. You're going to be not only from that employee experience, right? They're going to have a much better time. They're going to be more successful, but then your clients are going to be more successful and your organization is going to be more successful. So it is imperative that you design your CS team knowing what those roles and responsibilities are going to be, and you set realistic expectations from the forefront so that you know who you're hiring and you hire the right person. If you don't do that from the very big, at the forefront, if you don't design it at the forefront and then hire the right person, you're setting everybody up for failure. You're setting your employee up for failure. You're setting your client up for failure. You're setting your organization up for failure. It is, you've got to do that. You've got to figure out what you want and what you're trying to accomplish.
Oh my gosh, like 100% on this. And because it's funny, because hiring the right knowing what you want up front and hiring the right person for that up front is so specifically important in customer success because of the wide gamut of types of roles this person can play. Some CSMs, for example, do not want to answer support questions, and that's fine. I'm not going to hire them because my CSMs have to. And some customer success representatives love doing the support stuff on side of it. And for me, that's a perfect hire because it's a less frictionless experience, because I know whoever I have talking to them, it doesn't matter if they're high touch or low touch, they're going to solve the problem for the customer and as quickly and efficiently and as frictionlessly as possible. But it's funny because we when we were rolling out support driven growth at Help Scout, which is kind of this hybridized support success fusion, it was, I would say 50% of the team was 100%, this is awesome, I'm really on board, and 50% of the team was this is too salesy for us. We don't we're not here to make money.
We're not sales.
It's funny, especially in this. There's such strong opinions that there's some support people who don't want to do anything sales related, and there's some account managing people who don't want to do anything support related. And if you have a structure where that's okay, totally great. But I have found that actually those people who love both exist, and they're great, and just make it up front that is what is required, and then hire those people. And that kind of, and also the other thing too because you were talking about the who touch my or don't touch my cheese. The other thing I think it's really important to have up front in the hiring process is how collaboratively your team works together. If you are something where people actually own a customer versus some I always call my approach business socialism. We're all just helping. Everybody's kind of sharing everything, and everybody's transparent of all the information, and we're all in it together, sort of vibes. But
yeah, that song's gonna be stuck in my head now, Mo.
So that's another thing too, though. If people feel this customer is mine, sometimes then information gets hoarded but there's structures where that absolutely works, where people own a customer. But just being upfront on this is how transparent we are. You're going to have customers that you quote unquote own, but guess what? A lot of people are going to be working with them, and it's going to that's the best way that we can accomplish this.
So I'm going to pull two of these things together in that how, the original question, I think, Jen, was, man, we've gone full circle here, was about where we are in this climate, and also tying to the right hire, right? So Mo, you were just talking about how a lot of CSMs don't like sales, and it's not really, in my view, I don't think of it as sales. I think of it as going back to our foundation, and I'll say it a million times, helping customers reach their desired outcome. Their desired outcome is to grow as an organization, which means if they're growing, we're growing, right? So that includes upselling and cross-selling, not sales. We're helping them grow. That's strategic growth. So that's goes with that. But then if you're looking at it that way from your business, then your CS team, if you have that under them, if that's part of their job, they are a growth engine, right? So that ties into the ROI of a customer success team right now. So if you've set up your customer success team correctly, based on that foundation, and you include that, you don't separate that out into a separate one. And again, I know I just said correctly. Apologies, because there's not one size fits all.
Right.
But if you've set it up in this way and you've included that, then that's a very strong ROI. Tying your CS team to growth, showing the value on retention, showing all of these metrics that really show without this team or with this team, we are better, we're stronger, we're better, and we're going to move forward with our clients continuing to reach their desired outcome. And because of that, we're going to continue to grow because we're helping them grow.
And
I'd love to. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, let's let Kylie. I think you've tried to say something a couple times.
It's okay. So related to this, I want to share the actual headers that we use in our job descriptions. For some of you may not love making a job description. For me, I'm passionate about that. To me, that is like the roadmap for hiring a great team member, in my opinion. So I'm going to just read off some headers for you to consider adding. You can add it to your toolkit. So we list out, obviously how to apply, about our company, a description of the job, but then we've got a bullet point list that is what makes you a great fit for this role. So that's a great framework to start with. Who is the person? What are the skills they need to have? What are the things they enjoy? So we list that out. We put our weekly business hour schedule, just put it out there very clear. This person knows what they're getting into. Responsibilities. We have a required qualifications section and then a preferred qualifications. So give yourself some flexibility. There are people who can learn and grow into the role. And I'm a big fan of widening the pool and giving people a chance versus narrowing it down so much just based on educational requirements or certifications. Give yourself a chance. I've seen amazing diverse backgrounds lend themselves to being amazing customer success people. We also have a section who you'll work most closely with. So just again, spelling it out. Okay, you're going to report directly to me. You're also going to work very closely with, these 4 team members. It also communicates, hey, our company cares about collaboration. We're not so siloed that you're just in this little customer success bubble. We're just putting it out there. And then, obviously benefits. And then the big thing too is we have team core values that we list at the bottom. I want to bring on people who resonate with those values. If they say,
that's a great
wow,
point.
that's awesome. That's my kind of person. Someone who can just naturally speak to, oh yeah, I can own that. It's just a great way. And so I found having a well-crafted job description essentially gives you a rubric then when you're interviewing people to say, what did we say was important to us? Do they match these things? Where are the things we can give a little bit? And are they going to thrive in this role? If we said they need to be detail-oriented, but they've got typos, they're late to their interview, okay, obviously there's some red flags. And it's just, yes, it takes more time on the front end to, spend your time crafting that document. But guess what? I have that ready for next time. I make a few tweaks. And so it's like, what are the things you can do well and then reuse over time as you continue to grow out your team?
Yeah, I love that. I love the examples. And I think Anne said it best. We will be reaching out when we need help putting together some of our job descriptions. I think ours are structured very similar. It's very important for me for folks to know who they're going to work with, kind of what the objectives are, some expectations. I try to throw some humor in it just to let them know that we are humans here. We actually encourage what I consider human interviews where we're like, please come comfortably. Please, be comfortable with us. We want to see who you are and we want to get to know you as a human. And we want to know, can we be friends? Will you fit in our thing? Like those types of things. So I think that's super important. To come back a bit, and in the in the chat, you mentioned data, which I think let's not joke. We all love big data. We cannot lie. But I think some of the things that I was seeing here, we were talking about customer segmentation. We're talking about throwing spaghetti at the wall, which my dog is a big fan of. I'll let you know that right now. Totally on board with that. He's the best sous chef when making pasta. He's a boxer, so you know. But for those of us who are starting out kind of smaller, growing, things like that, like where do we start with data? Because some of us as leaders come in to build and again come in to kind of scale and things like that, and sometimes there's historic data and sometimes it's in somebody's head and you have to be like, why did that customer leave? What are we doing for customers? And you have to really dig into the why sometimes. What's the why for these things? And just where do we start? Like, it's all in spreadsheets, I know, but if you could help us there. And then Mo, Kylie, I'd love to have you guys jump in because I think, we all have different approaches to data.
I guess I can jump in and start. So I love big data and I cannot lie. I've been privileged enough that because I typically have started with companies in the early stages, I can build those things out early. Which I think is it's never too early to start collecting data. Like you can do that day one of the business and you absolutely should. So, but I have definitely been in places where I have had to extract out of people's heads. So where I like to start, which is really at square one, is talking to either the customers or talking to the people who have talked to the customers, like the CEOs and founders, and then record as many trends as possible in a variety of different ways. And so the different ways that I think about customer segmentation and what data I collect is operational segments. So that is high touch versus low touch, or high velocity versus high complexity, I guess, versus low complexity. Operational segments. Personalization segments. So this can be things like verticals or use cases or geographies, essentially anything that might make your product personalizable across things. And then lifecycle segments. So this is, pre-trial, trial, onboarding, expansion, retention phase, and end of life. So those are kind of the axes that I collect this data on. And of course, there's also things like common feature requests or things like that. I don't do spreadsheets. I do tools. So I think about what I want to collect and then implement early on either custom properties in the help desk or in help desk, like tags, custom fields, anything like that to collect things on a conversation to conversation basis, and also custom fields in a CRM. And just really, really early on, drill onto all of my customer facing teams. And like I said, I tend to span the life cycle in a little bit of a mushy way, but just hammer into the heads of everyone in customer facing teams that it is that data collection that is essentially going to make us more efficient and make better business decisions over time, and hiring decisions and everything over time, because even though it seems like it's data entry, it actually is going to save them so much time later when we can make cases to product that we need to build certain things, or we can make cases to the business side that certain pricing structures don't work, or we can make cases on the hiring side that actually we have this many customers that have this many engagements, and this is and they're at this revenue range, and we need to hire someone to manage these people. Data actually helps you make all of the decisions so much more easily and more efficiently. So invest in the systems that allow you to track that stuff, and invest in training your teams to track that, and really build drill it into their heads how important it is, that it isn't just data entry. It's not just whatever. It's going to make everyone's life easier down the line.
I think I agree with that. I mean, you hit on a good thing. Tech stack is hugely important. I think in some of the very small folks in places that we've started that I've been, we've had to be super scrappy with our technology. We've had to kind of lean into some of the technologies that other groups were using and kind of morph it to work for us. But I think when you think about data points that are most important to you, there's generally a starting place. I mean, Kylie, how did you start? What data points did you start with?
I mean, I was going to say the big thing, I'm going to share an Albert Einstein quote, or it's attributed to him. It's not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And I like to think about that a lot, because you can measure tons of things. And really, I think you have to decide, like, what is actually important and what is it going to help us make decisions on. Otherwise, you're just collecting data and trying to measure things just for the heck of it. So, I mean, a big thing that we were looking at was obviously ARR for the customers and how to segment the services that they're receiving. Also looking at volume and complexity of the tickets. We created a system where we could categorize, what types of requests are coming in. That helped us decide how to segment our team. Hey, if we're seeing a certain section of our software that's getting a lot of requests, it helped us make product decisions. But I'd say just generally keep it simple. If you let yourself, you can go wild. And don't be afraid to talk to executives within your company. That's another thing. Just because you care about a number doesn't mean that it resonates with them. And so I think it's hugely important to connect with your leaders and say, okay, is this data that I'm tracking, is this going to help us, reinforce I need to grow my team? If the answer is no, okay, great. Now I know that. Let's go back to the drawing board and land on something else we can measure, so that I have some leverage later on when I say, hey, we need to hire someone, just making sure we're all on the same page.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I know you've got like all the nuggets.
You know
Share.
what? I love what Mo and Kylie said. The only thing that I could, add, actually, Kylie, you kind of nailed it with that quote, and I love it so much. I'm probably going to use it again, because too much data, as much as I love data, as I've seen data paralysis too many times in too many organizations, because it's so easy to say, oh, we can measure this, we can measure this, we can measure this, and then forget to actually look at what is really important, and then not really start making decisions based on what is actually important. So I love Joe. Joe in the chat was talking about net dollar retention, and that's one that I absolutely love. But even digging into that is, how are you able to look at that and what's impacting the numbers? Is it operational? Is it late payments? Is it credits from the prior month? Is it what is it that's impacting that, and how can you have an impact there? And is it CS? Is it operations? Is it, who is having that impact, and really looking at that? So thank you, Kylie, for that quote. I'm going to put it on a sticky note and stick it on my monitor right in front of me.
Happy to share.
That's amazing. All right. So we have figured out what our customers wanted. We have started measuring. We have talked about bringing in versatile talent and then moving into specialized as we grow, as needed, where needed. But let's talk about our channels and our sourcing for folks. Like, used to be, you would put it on a job board and things like that. Today it's, in my experience, we get a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of networking. We utilize LinkedIn. Like, where do you start when you don't know where to start? Like, what are some advice that you can give people when they start looking for talent? And bonus question, what is your favorite channel?
My favorite channel? Look internally.
Yes.
Like, honestly, look at the people. I mean, don't get me wrong, LinkedIn's great. All of the things you mentioned are great, but in reality, if you're ready to have a CS team, CS, like we talked about, right? One of the greatest onboarding tools to use is to have people sit in each department. Most of the time, if you're there and you're starting and somebody you bring up internally, they already know your organization. They're passionate about your organization. They're basically asking to be promoted into a CSM role, which means they really want to stay. They're passionate about the growth. They are moving in the right direction. They're invested. So looking internally is really my favorite, because you are then also mentoring to grow somebody further in their career. So that if I had to pick one of everything, if there's somebody qualified, that's always my first choice. If there isn't somebody qualified or interested, then we'll go the other routes.
I like that.
I'm a big fan of oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just being supportive. I am a big fan of that as well. But I can't wait to hear what you're saying, Kylie, because based on your job descriptions, I think it's probably going to be amazing.
Oh, well,
No
thank
pressure.
you. So I got to go back to the question. We have found a huge success in hiring power users of our software. So who are the people that we hear from a lot whose eyes sparkle when they have a eureka moment using our tool? Those are the people that I want working with other customers. If they're that fired up about using our tool, and they're the ones who are tearing it up, attending webinars and engaging with us and constantly just pushing and wanting to know more, let's have a conversation. You know, if you're that person and you just are passionate about that, it's a huge leg up in onboarding, to be honest. And so, you know, we can't always guarantee that, but I would say really be paying attention to your power users who you think would be a good fit, and don't be afraid to have discussions internally. Hey, this role is opening up. Do we have any customers, clients who may be a good fit? Start there. We had 2 different customers we've hired for my team, and let me just say they're fantastic. We were 4 weeks in and we're sitting with them like they're our guru about the industry, and they're brand new. And so it was just, you know, a huge thing to start with people who already knew the tool and loved it.
I will add a slightly different advice thing that has worked incredibly well for me, and is generally something that I think anybody who is in a leadership position should make themselves comfortable doing. And that's actually like, this phrase makes me want to throw up in my mouth, but like it's super effective, and that's personal brand building. So speak at conferences if you can, write blog posts if you can, be active on LinkedIn, join webinars, be on podcasts, and speak about your ethos. Because so many of either my best candidates have come just specifically because they're like, oh, I heard you on this podcast, or I love the way you think about this, or I want, you know, like, that has been just amazing for like just generating exactly the kind of talent that you want to attract. But even the ones that didn't hear me on a podcast or, you know, speak at a conference or anything like that, when they applied to the role, of course, everybody goes and Google stalks that who are you going to work with section. And so then when it comes up, it just gets candidates that might, like, it surfaces the ones that are jazzed, like enough to do some research, and also then connects you with them right away. So I have found that being super vocal about like my CX ethos and the way that I operate, and being very prolific in participating in these things, has been like a talent magnet. And so especially if you're someone who works for startups, because no one's going to work for Moxion, right? Like nobody's ever heard of this before. Like no one wants to go work for Launch. I mean, it's great. It's actually an awesome company. Everybody should want to work for. But like nobody like sees that company name and is like, this is my dream job. I'm going to go work here, unless you're me. So having that sort of connection as like a leader, then people will want to work for you. And that makes it so much easier to source talent.
Yeah, no,
Great
I love
point.
that. I think my mentality is I'm recruiting everywhere. Anybody I talk to, anywhere I'm going. I mean, I have, no lie, stolen a cable person because I had such an amazing support experience with them where I was just like, you have my number. Can you text me after this? I might have a job offer for you. And that person has followed me to 3 different places. It is everywhere.
That's
Like
fantastic.
I am in the Starbucks line. Oh, that is a great shirt. I love your shoes. Me too. Like in the elevator, good morning. Where are you going today? It drives my children nuts. And when I am traveling with business, people are like, do you know these people? And I'm like, no, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. But I think doing
You're
that.
like, I do now.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think seeing people in their element and seeing how they interact in human interactions is important because, like, we can train a lot of the skill sets we need. But if you can't stand in a line with somebody and compliment a really amazing thing or smile down at the child that is playing peekaboo with you, I'm not sure you can handle a customer that doesn't know what they want and you have to talk them through it. So I feel like there's just some skill sets in life that we pick up along the way. And I think I've learned to pick those out and watch those in my people watching as I'm everywhere. I love airports. But another story. Okay.
That is so true, Jen. I love that. And I'm seeing in the chat that a lot of us do that. A lot of us recognize those personalities. And I think that that's innately a CS leader thing, is that we are watching people. We're people watchers, and we see like for like. And you're right, you can't teach tech. And,
No.
and I've heard a lot of newcomers that aren't really into the CS think that tech is CS. Tech is not CS.
No.
People are CS. So I find it very interesting that a lot of individuals are people watchers like we are. And, oh, you might be good. Can we talk later?
Yeah. I think, and that goes into the brand building and sharing your ethos. I am 100% who I am, whether I am in a house full of folks serving dinner or yelling at children or chasing grandchildren, or, in webinars and talking about things like this. I will always make corny data jokes and I will always work in as much humor as I can because life is stressful. We have to smile a lot more than we do. And I just take that on as a personal mission. But to bring it back, we are closing in on time. And I think there's another question that's just like super important in my mind because we've put our foundation, we've identified what we've needed, we've talked about our talent and our data. Once we get the people right now, I think one of the most important things, and I think we would all agree with this, is we need our employees to feel valued and we need them to recognize the absolute, like, just amazing things that they do for us. We empower them, we enable them, we trust them with our customers. And so how do we ensure that with everything that they do, and especially in some of those places where we are scrappy and we are wearing the rotating hats, like, okay, now I'm CS, now I'm support, now I'm implementation, whatever that is, how do we make them understand that what they do is just critical? We could not exist without what they do. What are some of the ways that you guys like to show appreciation for your teams or capture that in any way? I mean, I'm a fan of stickers, but that's really hard virtually. So it's really weird when somebody knocks on a door and sticks a sticker on your nose and leaves. But so I've heard. I don't know.
I think constantly just reinforcing excellence is a great way to go. I'm also a big fan of feedback, but especially publicly recognizing people. So we've created a shout outs channel. If you use Teams, you can do it that way, or you can do it in Slack. And that's a spot where we say that's where you can recognize each other. And then we pile on with hilarious gifts and comments. And people, some people love it more than others, but just having that public recognition and saying like, hey, you're doing that thing that we ask you to do, or even above and beyond, and here's why that matters, here's why that saved the day, here's how that helped our customer be successful. I think even also paying attention to just nice emails you receive, sharing those with the larger team is huge. And then, yeah, feedback. I'm a big fan of Lara Hogan has a resource called the feedback equation. It's a blog post. I highly recommend looking it up. And then I'm going to share a book recommendation that's Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, career conversations employees want to have. So if you're, I don't know where you are on the spectrum, but if you're kind of like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do, that's a great resource. It's got lots of pictures, so it's not like a textbook. It's a quick read if you want to just talk about how you can help recognize people and move them along in their CS journeys.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think one important thing I put in the chat and I'll call out is I think it's really important for us to capture when we're getting to know our teams, how they like to be recognized. Because I will tell you, I am a bright red cherry tomato. If you praise me publicly on that, I will just sit there and smile and I will turn bright red. And so my recognition style is a little bit different. And so one of the first things I do with my team is kind of a getting to know you, like, how do you like to be recognized? And, how do you like to grow? How do you like to do these types of things? And so when we see amazing moments, we can kind of reference that and say, okay, they like slide a note across the table and tell them they're amazing so they can keep it forever. And some folks get out the bullhorn because we're going to tell everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I do the same thing. I think knowing what I was about to gush all over you, Jen, just to see if you turned red. I won't do it. Knowing what your employees want, what they need is so important because some of them do thrive best on that public acknowledgement. Some of them just want a Starbucks card every once in a while. Some of them, they could care less about all of that. They are monetarily driven, and it's all about, you know what, just let me do my job and let me know how to meet my bonus, and I'm going to kill it, and I'm going to, do that. Others, it is about respecting their boundaries, right? So it's important to get to know them up front and know what their boundaries are, and then to help them not just make sure that you're meeting it, but help them continue to meet their boundaries, like making sure that they're taking that time off and keeping that the work and life separate and making sure that they're getting that rest to keep that creative and not get burnout. Making sure that you're finding the way that they communicate best so that you can continue to ensure that they know how they are valued. Do they communicate best asynchronously? Do they need to have verbal one-on-ones? What is the best way? Unless you actually have that conversation with them and find out, you could be gushing all over Jen and embarrassing the heck out of her when really all she wants is a Starbucks card every once in a while to recognize it. Like, you just don't know unless you talk to her.
Yeah.
100% Starbucks, by the way, 100%. Like 100, anything coffee related, 100%. That is me, 100%.
I have a slightly different take on this. First of all, I love everything that's been said. Everything that's been said is super great. Definitely. We also have a big ups channel, but also understanding how people like to be recognized. I too am someone who doesn't like to be publicly recognized, but privately recognized, please give me all of the gold stars. But what I was going to say is something that I've noticed is, especially with CS teams, because the profile of the person is someone who is deeply empathetic and cares a lot about the customer and the business, that the thing I've noticed frequently burns CS professionals out, myself included, is not feeling like they're listened to or not feeling like they're delivering any sort of business impact or feeling like they are a reactionary cost center versus having, a critical place in the business. So that is one of the things that I feel like I mentioned before, that I split my teams up into specialties that serve as like liaisons in the business. Giving people a seat at the table in larger business discussions and making them feel present and showing them the impact that certain things that they've surfaced or certain things that have been collected and aggregated and come on their behalf, and how that has impacted how their work has impacted the business in all of these different ways that align with their greater career goals. Again, speaking of getting to know your people, not just knowing how they want to be recognized, but what they want to be recognized for, how they want to be seen, and what they are passionate about. Because, CS has a lot of different angles. Like, I'm definitely a growth-oriented CS person. A lot of people are product-oriented CS people. A lot of people are engineering-oriented CS people. Some people are very operational. I mean, I guess, yeah, we're all operational on this team, but so being able to find those opportunities within the business that they can actually contribute and grow those skills alongside those CS skills, I found that my teams have been very, very grateful for those opportunities, because it gives them a piece of the business that they might not have had if they were just operating as a CSM and nothing else.
I love the tie back to the business and the strategic vision. One of the things that I like to do is say, as a business, this is our vision. This is where we're trying to go. And now let's bring that down to all of us, and how do we contribute? And that ties into one of the questions that we saw on the panel, which was, great, I see your goals, but how do you tie that into the day-to-day? And I think doing that is super important. I want to be mindful of time because we are a little bit over, and I want to thank everybody for joining and being so interactive. We've had great conversations. I've enjoyed it. And you guys, I love everything. I am secretly going to play this recording back and just write down so many things. So Dana is kind of wrapping us up in the chat, and we'll get feedback out. We'll get the survey out. Guys, do you want to just round table and close it out for all of our folks?
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining us. Really appreciate it. I've put my LinkedIn in the chat. Would love for anyone to reach out and connect with me, and really appreciate it. Mo?
Yep. I've also just put my LinkedIn in the chat. Please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. As I mentioned, I speak a lot on it. So there's a lot of stuff that's regularly posted.
Awesome.
And I'm not as coordinated. I got to get my LinkedIn added. All I would say is, if you spent the time joining us this morning, you should seriously give yourself a pat on the back, because it shows that you care. And so just mad respect for you, because I love it that you're taking the time to learn and you care about growing your team and hiring. And so you're our kind of people. So thanks for hanging out this morning.
Awesome. And Kylie, I got you. I put your link in there for you.
Oh, thanks. You got it.
All right, guys. Well, let's see. It's Thursday. So as I like to say in the business, let's have a terrifical Thursday, and tomorrow's Friday. So close to the weekend. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. See you all.